No, I just had one online. Can
You
you?
have an agenda for us?
And we're live, Susan.
Okay, thank you.
No, the, oh, just a.
Just the agenda.
That is it. Cheat sheet. Oh, thank you. Thank you both. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. Save me from walking around. Yeah, no worries. Up in the table. Might as well take it off your box.
Let's sleep. I'm pushing it today.
Oh, I got Okay, just to note that we have recessed our closed session. I'd like to have a motion, please, to reconvene the open session.
So moved.
Second,
This is Lori Lamagna, and I'll second.
thank you. We moved in second that we reconvene the open session. Roll count or voice?
We should do a roll call going back in.
Okay, Teresa, please.
Okay, Joycelyn? Here. Gordon?
Yes.
Bob?
Aye.
Lori?
Here.
Dr. Pandolfi?
Aye.
Brent?
Here.
Rita? Aye. Dr. Wilson? Here. Michelle? Here. Vaughn?
Yes. Joycelyn? Fabian?
Okay. All right. The board has been interviewing and looking to replace our director and CEO. We've been through an extensive national search process, which we'll go into in a minute. And I think we're prepared to present that this evening. At first, I will have Chris Shade from Coleman, Lou, Kenny, Owen, who is our people who went out and found all of our candidates. In some cases, they went out and found people to apply. They've done a national search, and we have an excellent candidate to present to you this. At this point, Chris is online.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Shaden with Coleman, Lou, Caney, Bowen. We're a retained executive search firm based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. We're a generalist firm, but we've done extensive work in nonprofit, governmental, and education spaces over the last 4 decades. We were selected to partner with MCPL back in May, and have been supporting the board through the search process ever since. So I can briefly tell you a little bit about the search process and what's led to here before introducing the candidate and passing it back over to the board. So at first, we took the time to define the need, really understanding beyond what was in the position description from folks in the community and within the organization, what was needed, what were the types of skills, experiences, characteristics necessary. So we conducted an extensive listening tour, including dozens of board members, staff, patrons, and community partners. And we also conducted a pretty extensive employee survey that yielded results from over 250 employees. use that feedback to really pull together a good sense of what we were looking for in the ideal candidate for this particular position. We then did some fairly extensive market research just to understand the types of challenges and opportunities that exist for this particular search. MCPL is quite a unique library district in terms of its size, its population, the way that it's governed, and thus it required that we really tailor our search accordingly. So we spent from June to October actively searching in the market. So beyond just posting job ads, we were seeking out qualified leaders from the top library systems all over the country. There's about 20 library districts nationally that are as big, if not bigger, the Mid-Continent Public Library. We looked at that and a number of other factors to do outreach to close to 250 individuals across the country that met baseline qualifications. So we went through a lengthy screening process before bringing the board, the folks that we thought were the best candidates nationally that were qualified and interested for this particular position. The board then went through and interviewed the 4 top candidates and conducted additional rigorous evaluation, eventually narrowing their search to the finalist that has been selected and has tentatively agreed to join Mid-Continent Public Library as the next CEO. So Aaron Mason is the candidate that we're discussing this evening. He currently serves as the Director of Special Projects for Cleveland Public Library. It's a 30-branch library system serving a population of nearly 400,000. He received his Bachelor in Arts from Indiana University and his Master of Library Science, Library Information and Science from Kent State University. He's had a progressive growth and responsibilities with Cleveland Public Library over the last 18 years, and served in a variety of different roles within branches and within administration. He's overseen key initiatives and programs that increased access for communities and centered Cleveland Public Library as an ever-evolving center for learning and collaboration with community partners of all kinds, including schools, the justice system, and other key organizations that help create the type of connective tissue that Mid-Continent Public Library really prides itself in. Over the last decade, he served in numerous director roles, including Director of Outreach and Programming, Director of Community Engagement, and Director of Special Projects most recently. So with that, I will hand it back over to the board.
Thank you. Thank you. So as you hear, we have a candidate with considerable experience with libraries, a commitment to libraries, and we're very happy that to have his application and to have reviewed him and the rest of the excellent candidates that were gleaned from the possible candidates. I mean, it's a very small pool of individuals that would qualify to run a library of our size. And we've been very pleased with the candidates that have come forward. As Ron mentioned earlier, the board has looked at the candidates, interviewed them, selected this one. Then we went through another process of developing a contract to make an offer to the candidate. At that point in time, the candidate could come back with a counter offer, and then we were able to negotiate that back. So that's kind of a process that's been happening behind the scenes. And at this point is when we would, as we've just done, reveal the candidate, and now the contract to the public. At this point in time, I think I'll pass it on to Megan. Megan has been working with the selection committee to develop, not only through the process, to help us develop the contract as well.
Megan Blackwell Patterson. I work for Waldeck and Patterson, and I've assisted the ad hoc selection committee since April in finding a candidate, interviewing the candidates, and through the entire process through negotiation. So tonight I'd like to present to the board for consideration the key terms from the executive employment agreement that would be signed between the library and Aaron B. Mason. In the contract, you have seen all the terms and all the legalese, but the key terms would include the employment agreement going for 2.5 years. Mr. Mason would begin on January 16th, 2023. The contract would end on June 30th of 2025. His base salary would be $190,000. After 30 days of working at the library, he would have 15 sick days and 15 vacation days. He would receive the same deferred compensation, insurance, and other benefits that all other library employees receive. He would have an additional deferred compensation of 10% of his pre-tax base salary under the library's IRC Section 457B plan, as long as that amount did not exceed the IRS limits. He would also be eligible for an annual performance incentive payment that would be discretionary and determined by the board of up to 15% of his base salary for the library's previous fiscal year. Since he's moving from Ohio, he's been offered a relocation reimbursement of up to $25,000 or actual cost, which would be supported by receipts or invoices. And he would be offered a $12,500 advance so that he could start that process. He also would be offered executive and management coaching that is subject to the library's budget and approval of the board. And then there are key termination provisions for all the things that can occur in life that would be whether it's for just cause, a voluntary termination due to death or disability, or without cause that are set forth in the contract. And at that point, I'll turn it back over to you, Joycelyn. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate all your hard work on this. You've hung with us this whole time.
I appreciate the committee's work and the board's work. So thank you. Thank you to each of you.
I'd also like to recognize the work of John Laney, who worked along with the selection committee here too, that has retired from the board. At this time, I'd just like to say that as personnel chair, I will say that I believe it's a fair contract that's favorable to both sides. And I believe that we have an excellent candidate as our new, that could be our new director, subject to board approval. Any discussion on the contract? Then at this point in time, I take a motion. Do you have the motion on the board?
Yeah, I can read it.
Yeah, please.
Just a second.
It's got to cover three things.
Just a second. Gotta find it. Hold on. Okay. Approval of a motion to select the candidate Aaron B. Mason as the new MCPL Library Director and CEO, and approving the contract as presented, and authorizing the incumbent MCPL Board of Trustee President to execute said contract.
I'll make that motion.
I get that right?
And this is Susan Wilson. I'll second it.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Please say aye, but a roll call. Thank you. You should have a sign. Roll call.
Okay. I go this way this time. Joycelyn,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Dr. Pandolfi,
Yes.
Brent,
Yes.
Rita,
Yes.
Dr. Wilson,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
Unanimous vote. That's sometimes it occurs. Thank you all, and big welcome once this is signed by November 30th. Thank you so much, Megan. We welcome this new director and look forward to this chapter in the continent's journey, and Susan not getting any more gray hairs.
Uh-oh.
Right.
At this point in time,
Okay, I'd like to repeat what I had mentioned before, and it can't be stressed enough. The great effort of Joycelyn, Michael, and certainly John and Michelle, and again for picking up extra when I had the health issue at home. I do want to mention something that I think was struck me throughout the process were incredibly great candidates that came up. And one thing that particularly struck me with Aaron is that he had initiated different communities in Cleveland, which I thought were really just fantastic and innovative and good results. He worked with the local bar, the lawyers, not the saloon types, and in areas of adjust the system for people who had landlord-tenant issues and collaborated with them and evictions and things like that. In other areas where typically the most disadvantaged and the most needy had access through the library system and through collaboration with other people who had expertise to help them. And I thought that was just amazingly imaginative, not in some purely artistic area, but a basic doing good for people who didn't have the resources to do it themselves. And again, thank you for Joyce and for picking up when I wasn't available. Okay, let's jump back to the agenda and building committee.
My name is Brent Chalmar. I'm chair of the building committee. I want to present a topic and queue it up. I hope to do it in a rather expeditious fashion. And so, because we will be revisiting this later on, and I'll sort of explain why. Can you pull the slides up, please? Go past the motion, if you would. Keep on going. So for purposes of the board and purposes for the audience present and online, back in November 2016, there was a ballot issue. It was called Proposition L. Proposition L was put in front of the voters, and 221,482 people voted yes for that Proposition L. And I was stunned by the number because I compared that, actually, that's the population of the city of Des Moines. And so that's all the adult population from 0 to 101. And so that passed. One of the things that the voters were presented with is that if you approve this plan, it had a capital plan and it was very, very detailed. It included a new service location in East Independence. And so we have marched through that over the course of the last 5 years. We've done 28 or 29, maybe 30 projects. And there's 2 remaining big projects left, East Independence and Riverside. The way we have undertaken these projects, we have a set of construction and architect partners. They come to us with something called a guaranteed maximum price. And so if the project comes in at the guaranteed maximum price of $5 million and the cost comes in at $5.2 million, or an extra $200,000, that's absorbed by the general contractor. If it comes under less than that, we have the benefit of the savings, and we've saved some money on additional projects. The reason why this is important, for a couple of reasons, which will be apparent shortly, or should be, is that we're not at risk. When we approve a guaranteed maximum price, we know how much the building is going to cost. That doesn't include other things, fixtures and the like, or the land, and I'll show that to you shortly. But these guaranteed maximum prices aren't forever and a day. So can you go on to the next slide? This original building was designed for 18,000 square feet. We reduced it in light of the escalating construction costs to a size of 12,500 square feet, with a design that could be, if there was future growth or future need, could be expanded so that additional space could be added on in a thoughtful sort of way without exorbitant sort of costs. One of the advantages of the particular property that we have selected is it was owned by a land company called Lane 4. Lane 4 owned it. The property, if you could not pick it out from the previous slide, is on Blue Parkway. It's really the best way to describe it. It's just north of the corner restaurant. And there's a signal there. And so it is a high traffic, high volume, high visibility location in an area that's starting to experience residential growth and other growth and development around there. Can you go to the next slide? These are the numbers. Actually, there was a building committee right before 3:30, before this board meeting. What you see here is the East Independence. Our original budget back in 2020 was 6.2, and we had $750,000 in there for land costs, for land acquisition, because we had not identified a property at that point. And so the total expected cost at that point, I'm going to call it $7 million. GMP is the guaranteed maximum price. These were bids that we received in the last 2 weeks. It came in at 6.6, the 654,810, but you can sort of see our land cost was zero because we swapped a piece of property. We happen to have a library branch in the Red Bridge Shopping Center. And we moved to another location in the Red Bridge Shopping Center. So that's a building that has been unused. Langford owns that shopping center and they were interested in acquiring that property. And through a thoughtful evaluation, what's the assessed valuation of the property that we were giving up? What might we sell it for? What was the value of the land that we were selling for? We traded them straight up. And it was deemed a fair transaction. In some senses, very, very beneficial for us because we could be holding on to a surplus building. And we've had a history. We've held surplus buildings for 5, 6 or more years. And so we immediately got that. And we got a location which was ideal. If we went out and wanted to pick a location, this would be one of our candidates, and it was one of our candidates. So the value of that, when you look at that with no land cost, the cost of this guaranteed maximum price, and the guaranteed maximum price applies to the building construction cost, but the total cost of the project is basically $6.6 million. Think about buying a house. You know, if you bought the house and then somebody came back, oh yeah, well, we forgot to tell you what the land cost. You said, well, what's the total cost of the project? It's the land and the building. And so you can see that there. Grain Valley, there's a groundbreaking for Grain Valley this past Friday. You can see that this particular property, we 6.6, about the same, they're about the same square footage. There was some concern, you know, with hyper construction inflation, might this price sort of go up? We were very favorably pleased that the number came in at what it did. The land cost there was $320,000. So the total cost of the Grain Valley project is basically 6.9. So when you compare the Grain Valley, which is under construction and underway, compared to what the cost would be for East Independence comes in at a lower total cost because of the reduction in the land transaction. Forgive me if I'm talking too fast. I could sort of slow it down, but I want to sort of pause there because that's really the issue before the board. But we just got these numbers only recently. The building committee only had a chance to meet at this at 3:30 today. And there's some other considerations that I will share with you shortly. So we go to the next slide. These are details about what's happening into construction materials and construction costs. Next slide, please. The guaranteed maximum price has a 45-day period. It expires on December 17th. I don't know whether it's at midnight or 4 p.m. I just know it's December 17th. So the need or the desire of the board, if we are to approve that guaranteed maximum price, we need to take official board action prior to December 17th. If we fail to do so, those bids go away. And the purpose of this slide is to sort of show what it might be if we delay the project 1 year. So the number over there shows you an 8% increase in construction costs. And what that would do, you can see that's basically $500,000, 8% in the next year. You can see what that does, 6%. You can see what that does, and that's compounding. So these are thought to be sound and solid numbers, but we actually went through an exercise recently with Grain Valley, and our board members have seen this, and I've got copies here. I can give it to it all. We went back to J.E. Dunn and we asked him at our meeting at 3:30, can they go back and look at construction costs? J.E. Dunn is a major national construction firm. They have cost estimating so that we can understand, well, is it is this next year in 20, what? Is it 4% or is it 7.5 or is it 9.5? And we expect to get a report back from them to sort of outside independent, validation of what the potential costs might be if we don't accept the guaranteed maximum price, which is in front of us. So that's a valuable thing. They also will give us some understanding of what's happening in the labor market, because there's the cost of materials, but there's also the issue of cost of labor. And thank goodness for our local economy, there are some major projects really coming online. There's I call them Facebook. I guess they're now known by Meta, a big data project in the Northland that some of you might know about. There's the big battery project at the old Sunflower, depot in Kansas and DeSoto. And so what does that sort of look like? So we want to have some understanding about if we were to delay and if we were to postpone to this project, what might be the additional costs that would occur relative to that. The other part of it is because it's like any volunteer board, there is a change in board membership. Welcome, Bob. For some of us who've been on here, we understand why we want to build a new library location in East Independence, but we want to go back and for the benefit of our newer board members, make the case for them why this is needed as a new service delivery location. Additional data has come out. It's the 2020 census, which actually showed population growth in Independence in the first time in 50 years, much to people's surprise. There's a new Independence housing study that provides additional data and come back in a brief sort of fashion, show why it is that this is an ideal location for this particular library. It's important for me to say, I believe that we have a social contract with the public who were presented this, that we would build you a new library if you approved Proposition L, and voters approved Proposition L, and at some point we would build a new library. That social contract doesn't say, well, we're going to build it for you in 2023 or 2024. We just said it would be built at some point. But I think there's advantages in proceeding because we've got a talented design team and construction team that are working well together, and that they've been able to build us great buildings if you've been in them and seen them, and that they've actually been able to deliver on cost, and they've been able to deliver highly functional, highly usable, highly just beautiful buildings. And you can see that in the redesign, and you can really see it in the new design. And if you want to understand what it looks like, there was a rendering back on an earlier slide, and you can sort of see these. But a good example is Eastleigh Summit is a beautiful sort of building that has a lot of glass, and you can, the outside comes in and the inside goes out. And so it's a new library aesthetic, if I could put it that way, because a lot of our buildings just have that level of design. They were just masonry block on all four sides, and maybe we put a little window in there or two so that, a small ray of sunshine could come in. So the motion, if you can go back to the motion for me. I was at the Finance Committee meeting yesterday, and this is not an inconsequential investment. There are library resources that are available. We thought it would be helpful and appropriate if we had a special meeting. We normally don't meet in December. I hope if this motion approves that people will remember when we get to that later in the agenda, is that we may have to have a December meeting. But we thought that we would take the next 2 weeks or next 3 weeks to get additional information about what's the impact on construction costs and come back with it from an independent verification. So we understood what it is that it looks like. We would reevaluate population growth and demographics to sort of reconfirm for ourselves the need and the benefit of building a new library at that location. And at some point, and this was my date, December 14th, it would be prior to the deadline of December 17th of the expiration of bids, that we would come back together as a board and discuss the East Independence project. So that's my presentation of really where we are. And I'm going to make the motion as it's on the screen. And if there's a second to that motion, I should say by way of information, the building committee met and they unanimously supported this motion. That was 3 of us. And so there's a motion, and I leave it to you.
A second. Second. I'll second it.
Approval, do we need that coming out of committee?
We've started adopting the practice, starting the practices. It comes out of committee, we're asking for seconds. So I should also share with you, Gordon Cook, the chair of the Finance Committee. I sat in his meeting yesterday, and I heard some issues that they had sort of raised, which deserve some attention, some problems which are problems but are solvable problems. And he and I had a conversation this afternoon, and rather than trying to kind of push something through that may or may not have all the information that we need or have the full conversation that the project deserves, I shared with him the desire to provide additional time and additional opportunity for the additional information and the more fulsome board discussion.
I'll second the motion.
We're in a discussion. I have one question. Is the 17th is from done? Is that an absolute drop dead date, or is there
Yes.
some discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a drop dead date. The guaranteed maximum price goes away after that.
Okay.
It is a 40-day period, and staff came back and told me 45 days is December 17th. If we go this route, my hope would be that we don't wait till December 14th, but I wanted to provide some parameter.
Yeah, and my thought too, with respect to having a regular board meeting, you know, the statute said we have to be 10 times a year. And that's the minimum, which we do. And I think that's like, you know, say, well, you can pass from junior high to high school with a C- or D+. Well, you can do better than that. So I would propose that we do in fact meet in December, so we can work the dates to coordinate with you.
And if this has board support, we'll work with our board secretary to find a date so that allows for the maximum presentation. My thought would be that this would be the only thing on the agenda, unless there are other pressing matters that deserved our
Do
attention.
you want to talk about the other issues now, or do you want me to wait? I mean, what makes sense?
As you choose, this might be a good time. to-
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking, since this is, so the things that, there's a couple issues from the finance side that we wanted to deal with and get our arms around a little bit better than we have. One is as we discussed in October, is the cash flow availability in the capital fund, and because of the duration of the assets that are in there. So we are asking staff to put together a more detailed analysis of the cash flow, just to make sure we don't get any surprises. So that's one piece. The second piece is what was approved by the board last month, which was a PropL, what I'll call the PropL accounting summary that is, 95% complete, but there are some missing pieces. And the finance committee wanted to get a firm understanding of where we think we're going to be when everything is done. So that comprises two major components. One is what we've spent to date, and the second is what is left to spend. When you look at a project like this, and Grant noted, this is just the building. You have to add on the furniture and fixtures, the IT equipment, and any other peripheral costs that go into it. So landscaping, and I don't know if that's in here or not, but just additional costs. So that may probably add anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 on top of this. So to get a better handle on that, Brent has agreed that we will, just delay this and get those two pieces done, so that when we make a decision, we have a pretty firm handle on where we stand, and there are no surprises. So that's the real reason for the additional, what I'll call 3 weeks here, 3 or 4 weeks.
I appreciate the additional clarification comment. I guess I would ask of the board members if you're supportive of this, and if you have any particular questions about the project, it would be good to get them in the next week so that there is a time to sort of provide thoughtful responses to them all. Because if, let's say we met on the 11th and somebody has a question on the 10th, we might not be able to, pull it together. So we want to surface any issues, anything that people want to know, and so that we can marshal the knowledge of our staff and our outside resources to sort of bring as much information forward for us to give this the consideration it deserves.
This is Lori Lamanian. I just have a question. So we're only looking at just the one library, not both that you presented on the first screen?
Green Valley has already been approved, and Green Valley is already under construction. Green Valley was there for purposes of comparison. My fear was East Independence was going to come in considerably higher than Green Valley. In reality, from a construction cost standpoint, it came in about the same, Lori, and with a favorable land transaction, it was lower total cost than with Green Valley. Green Valley we can't unwind that one. That one, they're out there working on it, and they're hard after it. So
I thought so. That's why I was confused. So thank you very much for explaining that. But I am totally on board with this, and I am very appreciative of the process. And if there was, to give the committee, I am all for this.
Any discussion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution as presented on the board. Roll call or voice?
Voice vote is fine.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed.
Any abstentions? Got the abstentions.
Okay, pardon?
Any abstentions?
Yeah, I did, yeah, abstaining.
No, I was asked, I don't think we asked that. Were there any?
Right, yeah, I did, I
abstentions?
spoke to us quietly, yeah.
Okay, so sorry, okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I just want to make this friend Sean Martha Villager. I want people to understand we have not rejected any bid. We're just getting additional information, and this bid is still good until December 17th. And so at that point, we will have a vote either in support of the guaranteed maximum price or otherwise. But I don't want the delay or postponing this to be misunderstood for something that it's not. So
Sure, thank you.
thank you, everybody.
Okay, fine. Our finance committee,
Okay. Finance committee met yesterday. There are a number of reports will be fairly quick, but the one issue that is up for the board to approve, we had a presentation of the Culinary Center. The status of that is that it is currently not open. We're awaiting some equipment delivery and installation. It is anticipated that opening is now going to be in the spring, or at least that's what the scheduled date is at this point. So there are two pieces to the Culinary Center operation that are key. One is the scheduling software for the users. That is called the it's called the Food Corridor. It is a software for scheduling, and the second component is the use of Stripe. Some of you may be familiar with that for the payment process for the people using it. So that technically is a bank account that would have to be managed by the accounting side. So the discussion for that piece, and I'm going to take these in reverse order. So there's one motion for use of the software and for use of the Stripe.
Cody, read it to.
Cody, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not,
Your
do I
way
need
down.
to go through all this stuff? Okay, good.
No, there you go.
So that,
It's there if we need it.
all right, so that's the motion for the Food Corridor software. This is really kind of the mechanics, just the daily operations requirement. The Food Corridor is an online system, rent software as a service. And I think from Xander, this is the only.
This is the only one that does scheduling and coordination of food businesses.
So there isn't a whole lot of.
There's not a lot of
Not a whole
choice.
lot of options out there. So the Stripe again is just what I call the bank, just for ease of collection. So that requires approval of the board for the staff to proceed with those. And that's the motion from the finance committee.
So you need a second.
we need a second.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and second that we approve the resolution as presented on the screen. Any discussion? None, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
May I ask a question? I'm sorry to
Sure.
delay it. I just
Sure.
wanted to ask a question. So are people going to be paying to use the food corridor? Are they going to be renting the rooms, or is that the purpose of like the software is to help maintain like
Yes.
prices?
No, the software is for the scheduling only. We're going to talk about the cost here when we get, after we finish this.
So yes, they will be renting the space.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution as presented on the screen. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed?
There was only 2 eyes on the phone.
Waiting for Dr. Wilson.
Dr. Wilson? She must have dropped off. Cody, is Dr. Wilson still?
She is still on the call. Let me send her a chat message.
Sorry, any abstaining?
I'm sorry.
I was, what about Dr. Wilson? Is Susan on?
Yes, she's on. Cody, Dr. Wilson, are you there? I can say not present at vote.
Okay, let me go
Yeah,
again.
we're not getting a response right now.
Okay.
I haven't gotten a response on chat either.
I got a delayed response after I called for anybody opposing, which I thought, the delay. So let's go through it again. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Sorry, you have to wait for the online people. Sorry, Ron.
What's your vote, Yoni?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Opposed?
And my vote is yes also, Lori.
Any opposed? Abstaining? It's passed.
Thank you.
Okay. The second issue, I think you can roll back to the other motion in the front, is the charge to be made to the users. There are two options here. One is for the board to set rates. It is my understanding, or at least been communicated, that if we set rates, those are subject to potentially subject to annual adjustments. So the preferred method is to use what is called a cost recovery. The staff has put together some initial calculations to determine what that cost is. They will work on that, bring it back to the finance committee and the board. We will not vote on that. The only thing the board will approve is the method, which I'll call the cost recovery method. So the staff has looked at, like I said, done an initial evaluation. We've asked them to take a deeper dive into that. They've looked at the what I'll call, I don't want to say for competitive rates, but competition is subject to what the actual asset out there is, and this one seems to be a little bit different. So the motion for the board is to recommend empowering staff in consultation with the board to set fees for the incubator kitchens at the Culinary Center at rates in consideration of all factors as to its management and operations and utilization thereof that will provide the full cost recovery, and to review and adjust those rates from time to time as is deemed necessary to maintain full cost recovery, with such review to be completed no less than annually.
And that's the motion. Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question. I guess without knowing, I'm uncomfortable voting for full cost recovery, not knowing what is included in that. It's a little hard to vote for something that you haven't seen. I would be all for it if it just said cost recovery. We could later on determine full cost recovery, but I need more explanation of what is included full, or, for instance, I'll give you an example. Our staff is there already. Are we going to charge them for staff time in addition to recover that? Those kind of questions. I know you probably have an answer.
Well, no, I can
but
go through
we
that
don't
if you
know.
want to.
But
Okay.
we don't know in order to vote for
Okay,
that
so
tonight.
so then if you want to walk through it, I'll walk through it. So the definition of cost recovery is to look at useful lives. You look at your assets, you look at your useful lives. You spread the cost of that over some, what I'll call some depreciable life, whether that's the book rate or some other number that is to be used. Staff is looking at that. You include your what I'll call normal recurring operating costs, just the cost of the facility. You include the cost of the building itself, staff time. If there's headquarters time that is supporting that, that should be included. So it is intended to cover all the costs that are dedicated to that facility. I guess the gray area is that if we set a rate, the board approves a rate, then which we can't do tonight because we don't have enough time. So all we're doing is approving a method. Okay? So the staff will, like I said, they will rework their calculations, bring it back through finance, and then the board, again, we won't vote on it because our intent is to not set a formal rate. Okay, so we're approving a method, but again, I don't have an answer for that. It could be $30 an hour. It could be $300 an hour. We hope it's not 300. But that's what staff has to do.
My second question, is there an expectation for the culinary center to be fully supported through fees?
I think the way it was presented to us is that it would cover its costs after some form of startup period.
So it is intended for it to be eventually fully supported.
Well, I guess if you call it
Covering its fees.
covering its
Yeah.
costs, yes.
Covering its costs.
Yes. Yeah, that is the intent. But again, you're going to go through a startup period to where you're not going to recover your costs from day one. So there'll be an investment by the library for those initial periods, whether that's 6 months, whether that's a year. It depends on how fast they get it scheduled.
There were a lot of other,
Pardon me?
there were a lot of other unknowns that were kind of, like, we don't have equipment yet.
Right. And as I said, the biggest problem we have right now is
But
we're
we need
waiting
to
on
give
equipment. And
the
that has to
ability
get
to figure
addressed, or,
Well, I guess I would, in order to say full cost recovery, I would need that detail. I am prepared tonight if it just said cost recovery. Full cost recovery is yet to be determined, and I don't feel comfortable voting on something that has not been determined. I totally agree with the method. I just think there needs to be more discussion about what that term means before we vote on it. I understand cost recovery, that's fine. But I think more discussion needs to be held of what we call cost recovery, and some discussion on what would it mean for the culinary center if it is not fully self-supporting.
I don't know that I can answer that because I don't know what it's going to, yield in revenues 12 and 18 and 24 months from now. Okay, so the intent is that it covers its costs. If it doesn't cover its costs because nobody uses it, the board will have a different decision to make.
Yeah, I have a question.
Please.
Okay, thank you. This is Yummy Pandolfi here. I forgot to ask this in the other meeting, but is the coffee bar, is that included with the culinary center, like the revenues from the coffee or is that separate?
That's a different
It's
entity.
totally separate contract.
Okay, thank you.
This is Lori, may I just propose, is this something that we could table and bring to the table again, since we're going to meet in December at the same time to maybe have some additional details?
I don't know. It's up to Xander.
I would be
Xander
fully
and,
for this
staff.
if we just left it at cost recovery, and then it can determine what that is. This is kind of a little bit the cart before the horse.
So that determination of the cost is going to be, I would envision being established by Xander and Quan and other of their colleagues as they would get together to address that issue, and as well as defining that issue too. And I think in a very conceptual way, you'd have to have some allocation for indirect costs for people here at headquarters. But I think a realistic approach would be like the direct cost in the culinary center. And then another related issue maybe would be to approach this similar to the way a lot of the school districts do. I've attended like these 2-hour sessions from the North Kansas City School District, which are free. I also attended a multi-week session of all things on Excel spreadsheets, which I would pay for. So I think how we define the cost is up there. It's by empowering staff. Again, I would assume that to be Xander, Quan, and other ones who are familiar with the facility to make those decisions.
Can I suggest a friendly amendment, or can I access something? Can I?
Sure.
If we would just say provide for cost recovery, maintain cost recovery. I think at a later date, we can define what that is. I think this is kind of defining it before we've made that determination.
You just want to take
I just
out
want
the word
to
full.
define, yes.
I would
That's
suggest we take it back to committee and talk about it because as an example, cost recovery, one person may say, well, tell me what your salary is and I cover that. And my full cost is 35% on top of that. And then I have HR staff who supports them. I have the cost of
That can be
scheduling software. I
defined.
have the cost of the building. I have the parking lot. I have the heating and air conditioning, that security staff that has to be involved. Those are all part of operating costs. So the intent is that we, the intent is that we know what it costs to run this thing. The board can decide that it doesn't want to, that whatever that staff comes up with, and it's probably going to be a range of costs, and leave it up to staff as to what is an appropriate charge for the people that are using it. Again, we don't want to set rates. But we do have to recognize that there are, that, full cost is, I can tell you there are lots of definitions about what full cost accounting is. So if we want to defer it, that's fine with me. It's up to staff, really. Susan?
Well,
So do you want to withdraw the motion and we pick it up later or?
If staff is it, I mean, Jim and Sandra, neither one are here, so
then why don't we
just withdraw the motion,
why don't
move
we
on.
amend that way since they're
Okay.
not here to,
Well, we have a
right, because they're not
Well, the
here.
two that can speak to this
you
are
guys,
not here.
I have Sanders on there. Sanders on.
Hey everyone, I'm hanging out in the virtual world.
Sorry, I didn't know you were there.
Oh, no worries, just hopped on for this portion. So yes, if there's any questions that you would like to direct specifically my way, I am happy to help out.
So, Xander, what is the critical date here for the board to approve this method?
So
Does this, if we don't have approval tonight, does this preclude you from doing some things?
if I am not able to advertise a rate, it does negatively impact my ability to recruit small food businesses. I can absolutely share information with them and show them the space. But if I can't tell them how much it costs, it will typically, they won't go through the process of setting up permitting and going through that startup process for this location, which in my experience on average takes a startup business 3, maybe 4 months to go through, get an entity set up, get all of the health permits and insurance and everything that they need. So in an ideal world, the sooner I'm able to communicate that to small businesses, the sooner we can get launched on getting folks to commit to that. And I think it's totally understandable for the small businesses that I'm working with now. They'll say, hey, I'm very interested, but as we get more information, then I'll make that commitment to set up all of my paperwork, my entity with this particular address in mind. So hopefully, I mean, that's, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, so if I can just kind of paraphrase the situation, you need this method approved. I think staff can probably work through the recalculation of what we're calling cost within a couple weeks, 3 weeks.
They're working on that, yeah.
Okay, so that will happen fairly quickly. It can be re-presented to the board just for information at the December meeting, but this gives him the jump start so he can proceed. Because when that's presented, he'll want to do, like I said, it's going to need those 3 or 4 months. So I'm going to stand by the motion, I guess. I don't think full cost recovery puts any undue unnecessary amounts. That's not the intent. The intent is that we identify all the costs and make sure we have them covered.
May I speak? Go ahead, Bob. You haven't spoken.
Mr. Chair. Is Xander still on the line?
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of, I assume you have a budget for employees, with or without. Would you have a base definition of how many employees you're going to require?
Yes.
So yes, for the full culinary center, but that also includes the portions that are the teaching kitchen and culinary literacy and other educational components. In my cost analysis, I've asked for the incubator portion, so the portion that we are renting out to those small businesses. I have estimated in a couple different scenarios what I anticipate the staff hours would be dedicated specifically to managing that rentable space. And I hope that answers that question.
Oh, well, yes and no. So you're going to require additional people if we have actual customers?
It will take staff time. It won't necessarily, there won't be anybody on my team, at least with my current plan, there won't be any individuals that are exclusively for that purpose. So everyone else on my team will still be doing educational programs, culinary literacy, other library services that we have offered before. So there's no specific human being that is hired exclusively for just managing that shared space in those businesses.
So at what point would you think that you might, at what degree of participation from the private sector would you think you'd have to have additional employees?
Oh, at what point that I would have enough small businesses using the space that we would have to hire somebody specifically for that?
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, there could be different organizational structures where we could have somebody. I don't think with what I anticipate our maximum capacity is probably 30 small businesses, depending on how many hours those small businesses are using and what kind of operations they have. Even at that capacity, I still think that it could be a portion of my team, and it really would need to be thinking through just making sure that people are available to manage that space. I think it would be needs still to be a portion of multiple people's duties to adequately serve that function for those businesses. Because if I've got one person and that's their sole job and they're out, if they're sick, if they leave, that puts us in a really bad position. So I think functionally, still knowing that I'm going to have a small team, even when we get the maximum capacity for the culinary center, there will be somebody, our kitchen manager, it'll be their ultimate responsibility, but it'll also be a portion of my responsibility. It'll be a portion of all the managers on that team. So I still don't think that there's a scenario with the size and scope of our incubation program that we would have a person that is all that they do, because there's still the educational components that we would offer, and we have offered through the Square One program that we are offering through the Culinary Center now, for just providing information to all small businesses that come to us, and that would always be a duty. So I'll stop there. Hopefully, again, that might answer the question.
Board, my reason for asking that was, if we have X number of employees scheduled to be employed, then I don't see it, but there's not a marginal cost for the initial clients that we may have. Now, at some point, we have to add on. So that's all I was trying to get to is when you talk about full cost recovery, there's not a marginal cost for X number of clients. I don't know what that, I didn't get that out of it. It could be 30 small business.
Well, okay. So typically when you do a pricing structure, you look at what your expectation is in terms of utilization. That's part of it. You look at your lives, and again, you try and get all of your costs identified so that when you get fully operational, okay, then you have cost recovery. which is what I said before. I don't expect this thing to cover itself on day one. There's no way. Okay. It may take 6 months, it may take a year, but after that time period, then you would hope that if you've done a good job of identifying your costs, that you're either at a break even or whatever marginal spread. So that's what full cost, that's what full cost is. It doesn't mean we're going to charge people $3 for the first month. That's not the intent.
Well, I just want to make sure that we have X number of employees that are going to be there, even if we don't have this program. I think that's the way I understood the answer.
Say that again.
I think there are going to be X number of employees there that are planned today for this center without any clientele. And I think they can add, I think that I took the answer to be, there can be several customers added to the mix without having to have additional employees hired.
Correct.
Okay. So my point is that initially we're not trying to recover any existing employees' costs. Now, at some point, assuming this is successful, then yes, because we're going to add additional employees to service that, and certainly that has to be covered.
I think we're talking the same thing. You have a sunk cost, you have a step cost by putting this thing in place, okay?
Right.
So you are going to absorb that regardless, okay? So once you get operating, then you're going to have what your expected utilization is. Let's say this 50%. And we set our cost recovery, assuming we're going to be 50% utilized, okay? If that's acceptable to the market, that's what staff will do, okay? They're going to know very quickly what their cost definition is acceptable. So, but we can't ignore the fact that if we have these costs, that we can just say, well, as an example, the building life is, a building life is probably somewhere in the range of 25 to 30 years. We can't pick 50 just to get the answer we want. We have to look at a realistic calculation and evaluation. We can't say the heating, we're going to have mild winters all the time, have much heat. So,
Well, I get that. I just assume that we've already made previous decisions that X number of square feet of a building is going to be used for something, whatever it is. So that's, I know they're there. We planned on it. It's in the general budget for that facility.
Again, you're going to look at this over time. You may make adjustments every quarter in the first 18 months. Brent, go ahead. Wow.
Well,
Okay,
actually,
I'm going to be quick because I hope others will be as well. The phrase says will be completed no less than annually, so we will be coming back and revisiting and looking at this. I'm going to state a value because we're a public library. One would hope is that our hourly rate is not at the top end above everybody else because we are a public library and we decided this to be a public service. So there is a tab in the board doc called market rate, and I would just encourage people to come back and and look at it. It's an hourly rate. So if the calculation puts us at the upper end, I think we should pause and sort of say, can we rethink about this? This is a policy. We can always change the policy. We can always amend the policy. But I think we're stuck and I hope we might move in one direction.
Well, in reference, because Michelle has to leave,
I'll call in.
I'm prepared to vote on this if the discussion we had here today will continue. And out of deference to staff and needing to get this passed.
And that's the significance of complete no less than annually.
Yes.
The example is we thought we needed a coffee shop in North Independence, and it will never prove possible.
What's all the reason
for the economics setting? So if we set a rate that discourages people from participating, we will quickly understand is that we don't want to increase revenue by increasing hourly usage. So.
Xander, are you still with us?
I am.
This is Ron again. I just have a question for, I don't recall the layout of your facilities. Do you have separate kitchen areas for the incubator as opposed to the more displays and so forth for people coming in for nutrition information and so forth?
Yes, yes. So there's actually 3 separate individually reservable spaces for small businesses. Then we've got the large teaching kitchen, and then there's auxiliary spaces,
Okay, yeah.
storage and.
I appreciate that because I was thinking we have to make some sort of calculations from the clearly non-billable functions that we have for people coming and wanting information on nutrition and stuff. I suppose those come to the library to make more money. And that, you gave me the answer, which I was hoping for. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Call the question.
Please.
I'm
I'm
calling the
sorry.
question. I'm calling the question.
Okay.
Calling the vote.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the resolution as set forth on the board. We've had discussion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 There you go. There's Michelle too.
Hmm?
Dr. Wilson, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I said aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Any opposed or abstaining? Thank you.
Just making sure that, Teresa, you heard, this is Michelle. I'm on the phone now and I said aye.
Yeah, I got you. Thank you.
All right, I think I can get through the rest of this fairly quickly. So the monthly financials, that was addressed by Quan. That was just something we are discussing on a monthly basis at finance. Same thing for the disbursement detail. That's on board docs. The personnel schedule is, if you want to pull it up, I'm not going to go through the detail. Jennifer pulled this together. The intent was to get a framework for where staff is deployed so we can understand this is a first cut of a work in process. The idea is for us to understand where resources are, how they're used, and as we move into the budget process, what's changing, what is not changing. When you add a branch, what impact does it have on those other support areas? So again, I'm not going to go through the detail, but this will change in terms of its presentation format as we go along, but this was the first cut. The next item we talked about was the legal fees. As you're all aware, our previous attorney retired at the end of June. Bill is now on board. Because Bill has been more active in meetings to get up to speed, and we've had some other matters that had to be addressed, contracts and otherwise. There's more, we're incurring more professional fees. There was discussion about whether we needed to amend the budget. We don't think so because there's enough at the what I'll call the operating expense line. We think we'll be fine. If we do have to address it, it'll be later in this year. But we are incurring more legal fees than what specifically was budgeted for that one single item. The next item is the Propel capital plan costs. We, as you recall from the last board meeting, we asked for an extensive summary of where we stand on the capital plan costs. This is in conjunction with the building committee to make sure we know what we need for resources. We have an accounting of what's been expended to date. We do not have the piece that pertains to what has yet to be completed. And that is what we're asking to be done, as well as the breakdown in the format that the motion stated. So there's some pieces yet to be done on that, and we'll want to have that in order to have that next board meeting so Brent can get East Independence approved. The NXT, this is simply an update. Quan is coordinating that with the vendor. We'd initially estimated that to be completed in December. It looks like because of some vendor scheduling issues that will now be done in January, or that's the expectation, correct? Yes. So staff is working on that and we'll keep you updated on that. The next item was the Prop L RFQ review of the contracts. And again, I'm not going to repeat the
I have a
details.
draft of that.
You do have it.
Yeah, Quan and I got a draft of that
Okay,
today.
so that will come back through finance and that will get out after the finance committee approves it. And does that come back to the board? RFQ?
No,
No.
we don't
Okay, so
typically
the
do
finance committee will
RFQs
handle
through.
that. Okay.
We're, so.
Okay. The 8.19 is, we've talked about this. This is a building maintenance reserve discussion. I brought it up to the finance committee. just to get some input from the committee about where this responsibility should lie. There is a financial component to this, and there is the actual, what I'll call the execution piece of it in terms of maintaining the buildings. Those have to be coordinated. The piece here is we don't really have a formal method for estimating reserves. I had some initial, I had what I'll call a fact-finding discussion with someone who does this for a living. It's a professional firm that has proprietary software. They have the data. They can do this, and something you engage them to do, not only for the initial assessment, but on an annual basis. The library did something like this back in 2004, or that's the one that Quan could lay his hands on. It was what I'll call a fairly simple approach, but because we're spending what's going to be close to $120 million, we want to maintain these assets at an appropriate level and an expected level. So to get an understanding of what our commitment needs to be, that's something we'll continue. We'll discuss through the rest of this year, and probably hopefully build something like this into the next year's budget. But because the buildings are new, we don't expect any major maintenance. We know there's some maintenance items on some of the facilities here, but those are what I'll call the normal course of just operations. The next item that was discussed was Central Bank, and if you recall, we had talked to them about the fee structure they had. Central Bank is our operating bank, as well as the trust department handles the capital investments. Quan and I had an initial meeting. Susan and Quan had a follow-up meeting with the bank. We've had some exchanges with them. Quan handled the negotiations, and can I report the number?
Yeah, please.
So as of earlier this afternoon, Central Bank has agreed to a flat fee of $30,000 a year for the next 3 years.
Yes.
Which translates into, we think, about 10, well, I'll call 8 to 10 points on the average assets. I think it's a great arrangement. Quan has a very positive working relationship with the bank and the operating side, so this is a good deal for both of us. And that's a savings of a little over, probably in the range of $35,000 a year.
Is that, I'm sorry, Mr. President, does that require approval, or is this of us, or is that a report? Or?
Well, the way they're going to put the contract together. Central Bank will put it in place. They'll put the contract together. We'll bring it back through the board for formal approval in January. So, but we don't have any at this point. The last piece is I had talked to Jim about the branch stats, and he put together some history on board docs. You'll see an Excel file with some charts and some detail behind it. The intent was to just get some perspective about what's been happening over time. Together, the last 10 years, I put some charts together and some drop-down menus. I'm not going to show those here. The interesting thing, if you go look at it, if you need some help navigating, you know where to find me. But what's interesting about it is you'll see things like the virtual library increasing at a rather what degree, 30, 40 degree upward slope. Virtual library is gaining every year. You'll see that some of the branch statistics are trailing off. They're declining since 2013. It's interesting when you take the data and you put it against the map and kind of see what's happening with the branches and the demographics in the area. So again, this is a starting discussion. It's not intended to draw some conclusions. It's intended to say, what are we tracking? How does that translate into costs and future activities? And also, are we tracking all the information we should? Because maybe there are some things that pertain to how we're spending that we aren't tracking. We need more information or better information. So that piece is out there. And like I said, if you have some time, take a look at it because it is sort of interesting. That's it.
Librarian's report.
Okay, librarian's report. This has been put off like 3 times, so we're going to go ahead and go through it. If Jake, you can get through it in 3 to 10 minutes, that would be awesome. He's going to talk about the capital improvement process, construction process, and what we've been doing through the last 5 years.
Yes, so I'm just gonna start right into it. Next slide, please. We're gonna talk about the contract types, the design process, the PMPs, and the payout. I'm gonna kind of go through each of the areas and kind of give you a large overview of the capital improvement plan itself. So let's hop right into the contract types. Next slide. You've got really 3 construction contract types. You got design bid build, which is general contractor. You got design build, and you've got construction manager at risk. There's actually like 4 other ones, but they're real specialized and they're hardly ever used. So I'm gonna just hop right in and tell you about design bid build. Design bid build is by far and away the most used contract process that there is. It gives you a competitive price, they say. I personally am not a big fan of design bid build because it's long, it can be clunky. There's a lot of different steps you got to take to get through it. And sometimes you get to the point where you're at the end and you got the bid price back and it's way more than you thought your budget was. So while it's the most used, you get the architect engineer team as your owner's representative. So that helps you. In some cases, it's not always the best for complex projects. And it's not always the best for projects that you're trying to move along at a fairly rapid pace. So my next contract type is design build DB. It's a single contract. It's pretty easy. It's not for complex projects. It's not for unique projects. It's for things like highways and bridges and things like that you can go forward. You know what your square foot, your linear foot's going to be, so you can crank them out pretty quickly and go forward with them. It's a little bit faster. You can usually get like an early GMP from it. Guaranteed makes maximum price, but it's not designed for anything like what our project really was. So next slide comes into, we are at the CMAR, which is the construction manager at risk. And the really good thing about the CMAR project is that you get the construction manager in at the very front. So you're able to help with your costs because typically the construction manager has got a cost system in place, which the architects and engineers do not have, which typically your project managers don't have. So they're able to help you from that up front. And the reason why CMAR hasn't been really used a lot is because right now only 30 states are allowing it because of some of the federal and the state requirements. They just don't have it passed, but it's kind of a shame because it really does do a good job. You get pretty good confidence in what you're going to build. You get a pretty good idea of what your price is going to be. It's really kind of the best way to go. And one of the big things is that the construction manager handles all the subcontracts. And that is a lot of pressure off of the owner or the architects, engineers. So the only disadvantages is not all general contractors could be construction managers. So you got to be real careful about that when you hire your folks. So now I've talked about the construction part. Now I'm going to go into the design phase. Next slide, please. So we got all 4. I'm going to hop right into schematic design. Next slide. Schematic design, the architect goes through, he gives a little snapshot of what the building's going to look like, make sure that you and the owner know what it's going to look like, where it's going to be. This particular, once the basic design is locked down, then we will move on to the DD, which is the design. Next slide. Design development. And the design development is really kind of the meat, kind of the guts of where you're getting in the design and how you're getting, what kind of fixtures you're going to have, what your interior looks like, what your exterior looks like. They draw up, the structural engineers get involved. And so you get the whole inside of the building and the outside of the building as you're going forward. So then we get into one of the most important phases, in my opinion, and it's the construction documents. This is the largest of all phases because you have to get everybody together The architects have to get the structural engineers together. They got to get the civil engineers together. They got to get the landscape people together so that they can make this package for the construction manager to go out and give your bid. And then we follow this last particular phase up with the next slide, the construction administration. That's the final, that's the longest phase. I want to be real clear that typically architects do not supervise construction. That's the job, that's the construction manager's job. While the architects have a lot of experience, they're not builders, they are designers. And so they are periodically available, they go out on the sites, and they're definitely available for when we have questions, because even though the plans are drawn, there's always some kind of an issue one way or other. Hey, this is a 10-foot ceiling, but we're not doing what's going forward with or anything like that. So construction administration, now I'm going to move and I'll talk a little bit about the guaranteed maximum price. So the next slide, please. All right, so we've got the guaranteed maximum price versus your fixed price or lump sum. The lump sum is easy. It's easy to contract for. The problem is if you've got a $10 million contract and it only costs them $9.8 million, you're losing $200,000, and there's no way around it because you've made the contract for $10 million. Whereas with the guaranteed maximum price, it allows you to do a lot of things. It limits the amount that the owner will have to pay the contractor on the project, regardless of the project's actual cost. And it mitigates the owner's risk and provides a level of certainty to the project cost. Lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about the pay app. Next slide. Pay app is a 3-phase job. Basically, what the pay app is the construction manager puts together all the phases of construction, and then he or she delivers it to the owner. In this particular case, what we do is we have a prior meeting every month. We have a standing meeting where we talk about the different issues that are coming up, what kind of pay we can expect, what kind of problems are rolling down the line. And then it goes to the architect for review, and the architect takes his or her shot at it and makes sure that they're reviewing the right amount. And then it comes to the owner, and the owner reviews and pays. And we typically use this is the last slide, the AIA document G702-1992. Basically, this is a common, you'll see this everywhere. I've used it for years. I think this has been around for 50 years. I don't know. Anyway, that is my presentation. Next slide. Questions? Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Roberts. This will be real quick. In board docs, we have, back up. August 27th to 28th, I was able to represent the libraries as an employer representative for their annual meeting. Loggers is our retirement program for our employees. If you're interested in very specifics about it, the full booklet from the meeting is in board docs. I'm happy to report that I think Loggers is now, Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, 97% funded?
Yeah, it's close. I think it's 96.
96 something.
Even with what's been happening with the.
Yeah. So if anyone's familiar with retirement programs, that's very, very, very good news. It is solvent. It is well invested and protected and well governed. And our employees receive a great benefit from that. And Jennifer, do you have anything to add?
I would just always remind everyone that, it's an employee benefit, but it is also a community benefit. Our communities benefit when people are able to have a dignified exit from the workplace at the right time. And 93% of those Missouri loggers benefits stay in the state of Missouri. There's waiting for the next report so I can get the updated amount of how many millions of dollars of those benefits are paid into our 3 counties.
Yeah.
By folks that live here. So it is a double benefit for staff and for the community.
The only downside, it's not exactly portable.
No, it is not.
it for August.
Okay, thank you. The next matter is our December meeting. In light of the discussion with Brent and Gordon, would you recommend that you two touch base on any issues and then we get in touch with Teresa to see what times are available? Just an open discussion on that.
I'm going to encourage Teresa just to grab a date and we will work to the date and have the material. We'll try to have it ahead of time.
In light of the 17th?
Yeah.
Okay.
17th is a Saturday. So,
17th.
Sorry, 14th.
Well, as long as staff can get those two projects done.
Yeah.
That we can't proceed without that.
Don said they would have theirs within the week. I'm meeting with staff tomorrow to work on the.
so if you want to stick with Tuesday nights, that's the 6th or the 13th.
Yeah, I want to make sure that there is full
I can't.
participation.
I have another meeting that day.
So, I mean,
You don't have to do a Tuesday night, but I'm just,
if Tuesday, the 13th is a workable date. Let's try and check and see what that
This
is.
is more time too.
So,
yeah, just once another week.
I'll send out a poll tomorrow for the 13th.
Okay.
That's
Perfect.
perfect.
Great idea. Thank you.
Okay.
So announcements.
I don't know that we have your,
We have the calendar. Yeah.
yeah, you got your calendar, it's in board docs as well as if you've got a board packet, it's in there. The one date that is not in the announcements is because Christmas falls on a Sunday. We will be closed on Monday, the December 26th as well. We are closed next week for Thanksgiving. On Wednesday, we close at 5 o'clock. We changed those quite a while ago. And some of us, me, will be here on Friday after Thanksgiving. And then December meetings will just consist of the board meeting and the date to be determined.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. Trustees' comments?
We may need I guess if we have a meeting, because we'll need to talk about these pieces. We may need a finance meeting. Prior to the board meeting.
Okay.
I don't think we want to walk in cold with that. So
It's scheduled for
that's
the
on
8th.
here for the 1st, but
You're on here for the 8th. Because that's the 8th of December is the 2nd.
I'm just looking at this one.
Okay, I'm looking at this one.
All right, so the 8th. All right, that works.
Okay.
10 o'clock.
Mr. Chairman. And I might be beating Brent to it. I just had a quick
You did.
statement. As a person on this board that was appointed in late 2020.
2003.
Yeah, in 03, it's easy to say. I was appointed with two other individuals from Jackson County and another one from another county, so no longer here. I was appointed with Brent Schottenmeyer and Mr. John Boo. And I would like to say what an utmost pleasure it has been to serve with Mr. Laney. He has dedicated gobs of hours to the library. He's visited every single branch. He served at, on the with the finance committee, serving as chair oftentimes, has served on the building committee, and he has been laser focused on projects in each of the counties and has just been a real adamant supporter of libraries. And I would like to just take a moment to say thank you to Mr. Laney, even as he's watching a movie right now somewhere, enjoying his retirement. But his contributions to this library has been priceless.
I second that. I would add that a lot of people don't know John served on the Urban Library Council, which is a major national sort of organization. And so I made protracted comments at Crane Valley on Friday, and I'll put them in the record over here. So John was a personal mentor to me as somebody who had a lot of public service. And so I think we would all be remiss if we didn't pause and thank Susan Ray at this sort of point for filling in as interim director as we engaged in a search to find a permanent successor. So I publicly thanked her, and every time I'm on the phone with her, I try to thank her, and I try to limit my number of phone calls so I don't have to keep thanking her all the time. But I want to, in the presence of staff and other board members, thank her for that I'm glad we had a succession plan in place in the policy, because in some senses that provided a path and a direction to allow us to sort of continue to function and operate during a period of transition.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to express the same sentiments for Susan, the dedication that he had, fulfilling basically 2 jobs and, trying to find 50 hours a day. And also certainly for John, he's really just a gracious and dedicated gentleman who is very passionate about his role and function at the library, and certainly wish him all the very, very best.
And I'm not a trustee, but I do want to let everybody know that Brent was reappointed as well.
Yes.
So his term now runs through 2026. So, sorry.
Absolutely.
Not a board member, but just so you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I move we adjourn.
We're waiting.
Second.
Seconds, been moved to second. We adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
One time she's on.